Number 10. Kerry Brown. In October 2019, 26-year-old Kerry Brown was killed after a long shift at the Kerry University Hospital in Ireland. The young woman worked as a nurse and got off extremely late. She worked all through the night, and while driving home at around 8 a.m., Kerry was in a terrible accident. She crashed into an SUV, resulting in fatal injuries. Both the nurse and the other driver were initially taken to hospital for treatment, but Kerry didn't make it. It's believed that this crash happened after the woman veered into the other lane, putting herself directly in the path of oncoming traffic. This could have been because she was exhausted after a 12-hour overnight shift. The other car apparently tried to swerve out of Kerry's way, but everything happened too quickly. Immediately after the crash, a crowd of witnesses gathered to try and help those involved. Another nurse was there, and she reportedly held Kerry's hand for comfort through the situation. A few years before this incident, the victim competed in the National London Rose of Tralee pageant and placed fairly high. Those who knew Kerry say she was an incredible nurse and had a heart of gold. She was just starting out her career and had so much potential. This story just goes to show the lengths medical staff and emergency workers go through to keep the rest of us healthy. Number 9. Travelodge. You might think that having the night shift at a hotel reception desk is an easy job, but it can actually be pretty dangerous. In December 2020, 27-year-old Marta Elena Vento was brutally stabbed while she worked overnight at the Travelodge in the city of Bournemouth in the UK. After the murder, police officers apparently took 32-year-old Stephen Cole into custody, believing he may have been responsible for the young woman's death. A witness who was staying in the hotel that night, named Paul Ford, says that he came out of his room at around 7:30 a.m. and discovered the horrific scene in the lobby. Paul claims that the walls had splashes of blood scattered across them and that he saw Marta bleeding out in the corner. As he was processing the severity of what happened, another terrified employee at the Travelodge called the police. Paul did his best to stop the woman's bleeding while waiting for an emergency crew. He held some cloth over the wounds with some pressure, but it wasn't enough. By the time help arrived, she was already dead. While in custody, Stephen told police officers that the reason he killed Marta was apparently because she smiled at him wrong. She was working alone that night and had no one to help her when the attack went down. It's believed that the killer may have been experiencing a psychotic episode when he took Marta's life. Stephen has since pleaded guilty to manslaughter, and in 2021, he was sentenced to serve 10 to 25 years in prison for his crime. Number 8. Jessica Heringer. On April 26, 2013, 25-year-old Jessica Heringer mysteriously disappeared while working the night shift by herself at an Exxon gas station in Norton Shores, Michigan. At around 10:52 p.m. the night she vanished, Jessica helped a customer check out, but by 11, she was gone. You may be thinking that the last person at the store was likely responsible, but records indicate that the customer was a woman who regularly visited the gas station. According to an employee who wasn't scheduled to work that day but was driving by the store, a suspicious van was parked out back behind the building. The worker says that a man seemed to be messing with something in the trunk of the vehicle before he got back in the van and drove away. Jessica was filed as a missing person after a customer named Craig Harpster called the police to report that no one was at the Exxon. When officers came to see what was happening, they found the young woman's purse still in the back room with $420 inside. Strangely, the cash register was untouched. For the next 3 years, the search for Jessica continued with no luck until April 2016. A teenager named Madison Nygaard reported that she got lost and tried to use the phone of a man in a minivan matching the description of the one at the gas station years before. When the girl got in to place the call, the man apparently started driving. Luckily, though, she jumped out and was able to escape. This led police to the van's owner, Jeffrey Willis. When they searched his home, they were shocked to discover countless videos of women being abused both physically and sexually. Some of the hard drives recovered even showed clips of victims being killed. While it hasn't been 100% confirmed, it's largely believed that Jeffrey killed Jessica and disposed of her body. His cousin, Kevin Bluem, even supported this by saying Jeffrey called him to help get rid of the evidence. Jeffrey was eventually found guilty and sentenced to life in prison for his despicable actions. Number 7. IKEA. If you've never been to the Swedish furniture store IKEA, then you're missing out big time. Usually their physical locations are massive, sprawling out around 45,000 square feet. Inside, IKEA is set up in different rooms to display its products. It almost feels like a maze for customers, weaving through the various displays. Because of this, we weren't completely surprised when we heard that someone died in one of the stores back in October 2016. 41-year-old mechanic Joaquin Fernandez was working late one night at an IKEA in the town of Reading in England. According to coroners, he was killed by traumatic asphyxiation after some kind of large object fell on his chest and crushed him to death. A man who was working with Joaquin that night, named Manuel de Sola, says that he was trying to disable the store's elevator when he suddenly heard a loud noise of some kind. The elevator was actually lowering, causing Joaquin to start shouting because he was trapped underneath it. Sadly, the elevator descended and crushed the poor mechanic before he could escape. It's unclear if anything else came of this story, but an investigation was launched to see what might have caused the elevator to fatally malfunction. Number 6. Worked to death. Postal workers have a tough job. They work around the clock in order to get people their mail and packages on time, often at the expense of their own well-being. In March 2017, post office workers in Australia claimed that they were forced to work non-stop overnight, even after one of their co-workers died on the floor. The warehouse where the incident supposedly took place was in Nambour, Queensland. The management there has since denied these serious allegations, but the stories coming from the workers are shocking. Some say that one of the staff members, a 49-year-old male driver, had a medical emergency at around 4 a.m. and died on the floor. When terrified workers found the man, they quickly called their supervisors and the police to take care of the corpse. In the meantime, witnesses say that a blanket was put over the dead body while work continued around it. Many staff members were horrified and disgusted by the working conditions and lack of care for the workers' mental health. They say that management handled the situation with complete disregard for not only the deceased man, but his co-workers who were upset. While the employees say one thing, the warehouse says another. A spokesperson from the Australia Post says that the site did stay operational and that all of the correct procedures were followed. The incident sparked a lot of controversy, with many saying the facility should have shut down for the day immediately after a body was found. What do you think about this situation? Should they have kept working? Let us know in the comments down below. But first, subscribe to the channel and join the Badger fam. Number 5. Kenneth Douglas. In 2008, a morgue attendant named Kenneth Douglas was accused of assaulting the corpses of over 100 deceased women. The Ohio man was caught after DNA evidence was discovered in one of the dead bodies he'd taken advantage of. Not long after, Kenneth admitted to abusing the corpses for decades, between 1976 and 1992. For the most part, he committed his crimes before the bodies underwent autopsies. The families of the victims were furious with Hamilton County officials, who allegedly knew Kenneth had troubling tendencies. The man showed many signs that something was wrong, and some even believe the morgue he worked the night shift at knew exactly what he was doing. It's even been said that he was often intoxicated or under the influence of drugs at work. When he arrived at the morgue, many of Kenneth's victims were in terrible condition. One young woman, 18-year-old Karen Sue Range, was partially decapitated. In a horrific confession, he admitted to abusing her body for multiple hours. The other women were likely given similar treatment. According to Kenneth's wife, she contacted her husband's supervisor on many occasions after smelling sex when Kenneth got home from work. The supervisor allegedly told her to stop calling. This, combined with other factors, led to the victims' families filing a lawsuit against Hamilton County. Kenneth also received about 6 years in prison for what he did. But if you ask us, it wasn't enough. Number 4. Susan Giovanillo. Right after her EMT shift finished up late at night in April 2023, 19-year-old Susan Giovanillo went home to get some much-needed rest. Sadly, when she got there, The Long Island woman collapsed on the spot. When the emergency was reported, her co-workers rushed to the scene in their ambulance to try and help. It, however, was too late. When they arrived, Susan was already gone. The woman's sister, who also volunteers as an EMT, was heartbroken by the news. She and the rest of Susan's loved ones gathered at her wake to pay their respects to the young hero who started the training to volunteer as a first responder when she was just 16 years old. She apparently loved her work and enjoyed making a difference in people's lives. It's not exactly known what caused Susan's death, but the situation seemed sudden to everyone who knew the girl. She could have collapsed from exhaustion after a long night, or it might have been caused by an unrelated issue. An investigation as to what happened is still underway, since the story has only surfaced recently. Number 3. Reginald lied. For some strange reason, there's a lot of crazy people living in Florida. The southern state puts out headlines practically every day, and this story is no exception. In July 2017, a man in Tallahassee entered a convenience store and began acting suspiciously. When 47-year-old Reginald Lyde approached the counter that was being worked by the store owner who was working late that night, he immediately started making demands. He allegedly asked for a beer while holding a sword. The owner was obviously nervous during the confrontation. It's not every day a man walks in with a 2-foot-long deadly weapon after all. Luckily, there were police officers patrolling the area not too far away, and one of them saw Reginald as he was walking out of the shop. The crazed man was pointing his finger at the owner and even threw something into the building. When he saw the policeman, though, he tried running away. That's when the store owner yelled, telling the officer to apprehend the man. Reginald was taken into custody quickly and charged with robbery. According to the shopkeeper, he made vague threats while wielding the sword. The owner was forced to grab the handle of a broom just in case he had to defend himself. Unfortunately, it's unclear what punishment Reginald received. Number 2. Crystal Bayron Nieves. A 19-year-old worker was the victim of a brutal robbery while working the night shift at a Burger King in New York in January 2022. Crystal Bayron Nieves was originally from Puerto Rico and moved to the United States with big dreams. She was trying to work and save enough money to pay for nursing school, while also helping support her mom and family with bills. According to her friends, the young woman even wanted to travel to Cancun one day. But unfortunately, her dreams were never fulfilled. During one of her shifts, 30-year-old Winston Glynn robbed the Burger King at gunpoint. The chaos resulted in Crystal getting shot and losing her life at around 1 a.m. Winston demanded that she give him money, but the register only contained about $100. As he was leaving with the cash in hand, Winston hit a manager in the face before turning around and firing his gun toward Crystal. It turns out the suspect was a former employee at the restaurant, but he'd since fallen on hard times and was homeless. It's also believed that Winston suffered from mental illness. According to the victim's mother, Crystal's concerns over crime in the area around her job were growing before her death. The night of the murder, the young woman didn't want to go into work because she was scared. Sadly, her mom convinced her to toughen up and go in anyways, something she says she'll always regret. Number 1. Andell Taylor. Late one winter night in December 2022, while on her way home from work, 22-year-old Andell Taylor became trapped in her car. A terrible snowstorm had blown in through Buffalo, New York, dropping over 50 inches of snow onto her vehicle. The woman was obviously frightened during the ordeal, so she filmed a video of herself in the car and sent it to her family. And sadly, this was the last time they ever heard from her. In the video Andell took, she rolled her window down and pointed the camera outside to capture the intense snowfall. She texted her family and told them she was trapped and scared, but there was nothing they could do to help. Once the storm was over, authorities found the bodies of multiple people, including Andell, in their vehicles. All of the victims froze to death as they were trapped in their cars for about 18 hours. Apparently, there were many weather advisories put up before the storm, and a ban on road travel was even issued. Despite this, many ventured out into the storm. In total, the blizzard that took place in late 2022 claimed the lives of about 70 people. Have you ever worked the graveyard shift? What was it like? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to see more. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.